We started this podcast to help resist what we called the slow apocalypse. But it hasn't been slow at all. Fascism is rising in the U.S. at an alarmingly fast rate. So sometimes we feel the need to make a smaller, quicker episode that is a more immediate response to current events. We are calling these resist ants, because even though they are smaller, like little ants, they are strong for their size, and many of them together, one grain of sand at a time, can build a giant levee against the flood of authoritarianism. So what are we talking about today, Jonathan?
Well, I thought we'd talk a little bit about Signal, the messaging application, which has been very much in the news lately. I thought it would be important for our listeners to understand a little bit about what Signal is, because it seems to have gotten a lot of criticism in the newspapers lately, but it's not actually a problem with Signal, which has caused all the news. It's a problem with the way Signal is used. I think Signal is a useful tool, and I wanted to explain what the screw-up that the Trump administration did in their use of Signal can teach us how to be better and securely communicating as we resist. So what happened was, on March 11th, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic magazine got a message that communication was being initiated with him through this Signal secure messaging application from someone named Waltz. It turned out this person was Mike Waltz, who is the National Security Advisor. A few days later, he was included in a Signal chat group that included people like the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, the National Security Advisor, the Vice President, J.D. Vance, the Director of the CIA, the Director of National Intelligence, and the Special Envoy, for example, who was traveling in Russia at the time that this happened. And over the next few days, classified information was shared on this Signal chat group about an attack that the United States was making on the ground in Yemen against Houthi rebels in Yemen. The information that was shared was classified and dangerous to military service members, and also probably describing a war crime, in the sense that they talked about going after a military target, and they talked about destroying a civilian building known to be filled with civilians at the time in order to attack one military target.
He must have been very, very surprised to be suddenly included on this chat.
He described himself as being quite surprised. He didn't know how this happened. He had never requested it. What seems to have happened is that for some reason, the National Security Advisor had connection information for the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic on his phone. When he made up this Signal chat group, he was not very careful about how he created the group. I want to spend a moment or two just to show something about the way we need to do security when we want to talk about things in a way that could be dangerous if other people hear them, but we want to use a tool that protects us. So we've mentioned Signal in the past, and I think that this example of the use of Signal does not show that Signal is not effective. It shows that the way you use Signal or any security tool is very important. And we can look at this for just a moment and learn how we can be more secure when we communicate with people in important situations.
And I just want to point out that one of the things that these people did wrong was using Signal in the first place. They're not supposed to do that. As a matter of fact, that was breaking the law. They're supposed to use secure Defense Department channels of communication, and they're supposed to keep records of that. So they were using Signal specifically so that the records of their war crimes would disappear over time, so that they could not be subpoenaed later and this information of their war crimes show up. So I just wanted to point that out. They weren't supposed to be on Signal.
This is absolutely true. Signal is not an approved method of communication for the U.S. intelligence services. The way Signal works, however, in some sense does serve the purposes that they want in communicating quite securely. Signal does what is called end-to-end encryption. I think that's something we can talk about here. It's a useful thing for people to know about. End-to-end encryption means that when you are communicating with someone, the message you are making, whether it's images of you and your voice for a video chat, or whether it's just a text that you're sending to a particular person or your entire group of people, that information is encrypted on your device, the device in your hand or under your fingers on your desktop, before it goes out over the network. Then on the network, even in the hands of the people running the service, like the Signal organization or anyone who is moving data around on the internet, it is encrypted. No one can get at it. And then when it arrives on the destination machine, it is decrypted on the destination machine, and then the intended recipient gets to read the actual message. End-to-end encryption is fantastic because it protects your messages even from malicious actors, say, in the service provider. If Signal were bad guys, there's still nothing they can do to turn over your information or to surveil you, because the information passing through their servers, and actually they have a way to send the information so it doesn't pass through their servers, but the information anyway, as it goes out, is entirely encrypted and is protected by very strong cryptography. So this anecdote that just happened in the press is not a statement that end-to-end encryption is a bad thing. End-to-end encryption is a great thing. The problem is what happens at the ends. And as a very amusing headline in the 404 Media news outlet was, when your threat model is being a moron, that was the title of the article, there's really nothing we can do about it. The threat model here is that Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, is kind of a moron, and so he did not check that the people on the group were the right people, nor the National Security Advisor, and so there's nothing you can do to prevent people from misusing a good tool in that way. So let me just say a little more about Signal. We've said it in the past it's a good tool, and I encourage people to use it, but let's make sure we use it carefully. Signal is something you use on your phone. You must have a phone number to get started with Signal. You have an iPhone or an Android. You download the app. Then you create an account. When you create an account, you have to use your phone number. This is information you cannot avoid giving them. If you then later change your phone number, there's all a process for moving your Signal account to a new phone number. That's a little bit complicated, but it can be done. You can protect your anonymity a little bit by making something called a username, which is kind of like a social media handle, so you don't necessarily have to share your phone number with people, but the Signal people do know your phone number. It then creates an identity for you using this thing we've talked about in the past called public key cryptography. It creates keys for you, keeps them in a secret on your machine, and then, as we've said, using this approach of end-to-end encryption, all of the messages, the text messages, the video messages, the audio messages you send will be encrypted, and no one on the net can see them except for the intended recipient. This is a great service. It is very powerful. Why do I like it so much? I like it because it's open source software. It has been vetted by independent cryptographers all over the world. There have been a series of people who looked at it. They found minor issues that have been corrected over the years that the Signal protocol has been in existence. And it is a general belief of the community that the security of this cryptographic protocol is very high. The implementation of this protocol is very good because it's open source software. That means that anyone can look at the code and you can test to make sure that the version that you've downloaded onto your machine is indeed running the code that professional cryptographers have looked at and software engineers have looked at. It is doing what it is said to do. So it's highly secure. There are some settings you can use in Signal to protect your security as much as is possible. It's not intended to protect your anonymity completely, but it doesn't protect your security. I strongly recommend, as we have said, the Electronic Frontier Foundation's Security Self-Defense website. They have a special page on how to set up Signal on your phone. They walk you through what settings to use to have the most security. And there are security settings that may matter in particular circumstances. For example, if you are suffering domestic abuse, you may want to make certain settings so that someone who is on your contact list does not get a notification when you join Signal and does not get invited to contact you through Signal because maybe your abuser is also in your contact list. So Signal was very thoughtfully designed, and there are lots of choices you can make when you set it up that will enable you to operate in a very secure way.
It seemed to me the problem here, though, is if someone has your phone, they have it. So if someone is, for example, having a meeting in the Kremlin and they're going through, say, the metal detector, and they have to, for example, hand their phone over when they do this, which is common practice, the person you hand your phone to then has your phone.
This is exactly true, and this is probably the reason why, as you pointed out, this kind of software is not considered secure for military intelligence level threats. For an individual, if you're crossing a border, someone may confiscate your phone. I entirely agree with you. One of the nice things about the security protocol Signal uses, however, is that if your device is taken from you and is compromised at that point, once someone has their hands on your phone, they have the keys to your kingdom. They can get into your phone and they can get that key which Signal has inside the app on your phone. They can then send messages as you. They can read messages that are sent to you. One nice thing, however, though, is that messages in the past will not be readable to them if they're not stored on the device. So Signal, by default, stores messages that you have already exchanged with other people on your device in a readable form, not when they're moving through the internet because of end-to-end encryption, but on your phone, they're stored there in the clear, as we cryptographers would say. So if someone gets your phone and those messages are in the clear, they can read those past messages. But you can set Signal to erase messages after a certain time limit. That's the thing you were pointing out that violates the Federal Records Act.
That's what these guys did.
Exactly. So,
but it didn't help because they put the wrong people on their list.
Because they'd sent it to the press.
Because they're morons.
So Signal will erase the messages, but until they're erased, they're in the clear on your phone, and those messages are gone. Anyone who has access to your phone will be able to read them. However, the ones that are erased, no one who has been eavesdropping on the communications can later go back and take the encrypted form and decrypt the old messages. Every time a message is sent, it is with a one-time key, and then it's safe for future communication. So this is what's called forward security or backward security, depending on exactly how it's used in the cryptographic literature. So it's a great protocol. It can protect you a lot. But as you pointed out, when you lose control of your phone, that's bad news. Signal also can be used as a program on your desktop computer running under Windows or Mac or Linux, and you can secure a desktop computer much better than you can secure a phone with the whole disk encryption. The thing in the previous episode when we talked about phones, we said phones are a little bit of a problem. It's harder to make them completely secure. And so this is why I would say if you're organizing something that requires a great level of security, then you need to have great control over your phone. If you hand your phone off to someone and they take it away from you, then you cannot trust that phone anymore, and you need to contact everyone you've been speaking to under Signal to no longer trust your old Signal account.
So I have another question, which is, I doubt that I will be in charge of committing war crimes on behalf of the United States, but I may want to cross the U.S. border, and we're now seeing that people are being detained at the U.S. border and whisked away by these thugs, by these goons, into black box prisons because of things that they have put on their socials. People are having their phones confiscated when they go across the U.S. border. What should I do if I'm going across the U.S. border and I don't want these goons to take my phone, look at it, and say, obviously you make a podcast about resistance, off to Gitmo for you?
So unfortunately, there's not a great answer to that. I think that phones are, as I've said in the past, are hard to really secure. There is a thing you can do with a laptop or a thumb drive. We mentioned in the past you can encrypt an entire thumb drive or entire disk drive on a laptop, and then you can carry it across the border. If they confiscate it from you, you may lose access to it. If they take it away from you for a while and then return it to you, don't trust it, because they may have installed a keylogger physically into the device. If it's a laptop, keyloggers these days are rumored to be the size of a grain of rice, so you could be hidden somewhere in your device and you'll never know. But you can protect so that if they take it away from you, then they will not be able to masquerade as you. They will not be able to get the information off it by using whole disk encryption with a long dice-word password, as we mentioned in a previous episode. Your phone is just intrinsically harder to protect. There are a few physical devices that you can buy that don't run Android or iOS for iPhones, which may have full disk encryption. But I would say at the moment that if you're crossing a border or if you're going to a protest where you may get arrested, then don't carry your phone. That's the only thing I can say. There is no way to really secure your phone. Leave your phone at home if you need to organize with other people as you're moving across a border or at a protest. Carry a cheap phone that can just send text messages and make phone calls. But carrying a phone that has your identities and your Signal account on it, if it's confiscated from you, your future communications are in danger. Certainly, you have to carry your phone, erase all the messages stored in the Signal app, because they will be visible to someone who confiscates your phone. So we just want to do this resistant quickly to say that this Signal is a high-quality tool. It has been checked by independent consultants, and we trust that it is a very excellent tool for what it does. But what it does, as you have pointed out, to be secure, involves having control over the device. So be careful of your devices, use Signal in good health, and read the instructions on the Signal website and the Electronic Frontier Foundation suggestions on how to get maximum security using Signal. And don't be a moron. Don't include the people you want to keep off of your chat into the group chats that you are organizing.
Good advice for us all. Thank you, Jonathan.